Luck is a myth, a seductive illusion whispered into the ears of the weak. Those who claim fortune favors them have merely failed to recognize the true currency of reality control. You do not stumble into luck. You do not negotiate with chance. You engineer it. And yet, the human mind craves randomness, the belief that fate is something outside itself, an external deity to blame, to worship, to fear. This is where power begins, by seeing the invisible chains of perception and realizing that what others call bad luck is nothing more than mismanagement of influence, misalignment of presence, and the ignorance of psychological leverage. Consider the human mind a delicate instrument of chaos and order. Every decision you make, every glance, every silence, every calculated absence sends ripples across the subconscious of those who orbit your world. Bad luck, therefore, is not a force, it is a reflection of fractured perception. It is the echo of hesitation, the visible fracture in your aura of control. When you are observed as weak, indecisive, reactive, you attract the world's entropy like a magnet. Those around you sense it before you do, and they exploit it. They prey upon it. This is the principle few dare to master. Fortune is sculpted by the mind, not discovered by chance. It is in the deliberate absence of noise that you gain psychological advantage. When you allow yourself to be predictable, to beg the world for validation, you invite calamity. Misfortune feeds on attention, on expectation, on the fragile ego. It is attracted to the visible cracks of desire and insecurity. Your presence, however, can invert this dynamic. Presence that is disciplined, measured, silent, yet omnipotent in its quiet gravity, reshapes the environment itself. People adjust their perception around you. Circumstances bend toward the one who knows the mechanics of influence. Observe the mechanics of luck. A coin falls heads or tails. A stranger reacts with kindness or cruelty. A business deal collapses, a relationship fractures. Each of these is a chaotic variable in the eyes of the knave. But the strategist sees only leverage. He observes tendencies, patterns, and vulnerabilities. He notices who is weak, who is desperate, who will act predictably under pressure. He does not pray for fortune, he imposes it. The absence of panic, the control of timing, the orchestration of perception, all of these are instruments sharper than steel. One who understands this is never at the mercy of circumstance. There is another layer to this unseen architecture, the internal economy of emotion. Most consider bad luck a matter of external events. The strategist knows that the most dangerous misfortune originates within fear, desire, obsession, and ego unbound. These are invisible predators, quietly dismantling competence from the inside. A man consumed by anxiety will perceive threats where none exist. He will act rashly and invite disaster. A mind tethered to the whims of others' approval will stumble into chaos, mistaking attention for leverage, noise for authority. Silence, composure, and absence are weapons far more potent than any physical tool or external resource. They allow you to bend probability without bending your spine, to impose order upon the chaos of the world simply through the disciplined architecture of presence. Bad luck is, in essence, a failure of strategy. The universe is neutral. It rewards the architect, the strategist, the mind that can manipulate perception without alerting the world to its hand. Those who stumble into misfortune are merely those whose psychological presence is weak, whose internal architecture is unstable. To never have bad luck is not to defy reality. It is to become an unshakable axis around which reality itself orbits. Every misstep, every perceived setback is reframed not as a calamity, but as an opportunity for calculated manipulation of circumstance. By the end of this exploration, you will see that what others call chance, fate, or luck is nothing more than the echo of weakness. You will learn to operate in a realm where your mind is the true sovereign. You will understand the subtle laws of absence, the invisible chains of influence, and the silent recalibration of human perception that allows you to move through the world untouched by the randomness that ensnares the unprepared. The path is not easy. It requires patience, observation, restraint, and a cold detachment from the illusions that comfort the masses. But mastery of this path does not merely shift probability in your favor, it transforms you into the architect of it. The first layer of mastery begins not with action, but with stillness. Observation is the hidden arm of influence, the quiet force that separates those who stumble from those who orchestrate. In the shadows of silence, you watch the patterns of human behavior unfold. The compulsions, the weaknesses, the desperate need for validation that drives men and women alike to predictable ruin. To engage too early, to speak before the architecture of perception is understood, is to invite disorder. Silence is not emptiness, it is a tool, a weapon, a form of control that forces others to reveal themselves. Notice how the weak act under pressure. They flinch at the smallest deviation from expectation. They over-explain. They attempt to bribe attention with words and gestures. Each of these is a signal, an invitation. The strategist consumes these signals, mapping the psychological terrain like a general surveying a battlefield. Absence magnifies your presence. It makes others desperate to fill the void, to seek your attention, to miscalculate your value. What they interpret as luck or fortune is, in reality, a reflection of your mastery over timing and perception. In this stage, you begin to understand the subtle economics of influence. Attention is finite. It is the currency of human interaction. Every display of need, of overexposure, diminishes your leverage. Every well-calculated absence increases it. You are not simply withdrawing, you are shaping desire, cultivating obsession, and engineering the anticipation that will later bend circumstances to your will. Silence is also a mirror. It reveals the cracks in ego and identity that others cannot hide. Observe how fear manifests in hesitation, how desire compels the reckless, how pride blinds judgment. Every misstep you witness is a blueprint for control. By mastering the art of stillness, you are no longer subject to chance. You are instead the silent force around which the randomness of the world gravitates, the unseen hand that turns the currents of circumstance into a river of advantage. The knave believes that fortune smiles on those who act. The strategist knows that fortune bows to those who wait, who calculate, who see the world as a map of weakness to exploit. Observation, silence, and absence are the first threads in a web of mastery. Those who understand this stage will never mistake luck for weakness. Once observation has mapped the terrain of the mind, the next stage is manipulation of its currents. Here, the strategist moves from passive understanding to active orchestration. Human emotion is a currency, and like any currency, it can be measured, exchanged, and leveraged. Desire, fear, obsession, and expectation are not mere feelings, they are mechanisms through which the world bends, subtly, to those who know how to pull the strings without revealing their hand. In this stage, every interaction is a calculated variable. A glance, a word, a deliberate absence, each is designed to elicit a reaction, to calibrate the emotional state of others. The untrained mind perceives chaos, the strategist sees opportunity. When others flinch, panic, or overcommit, it is not misfortune, it is data. Their weaknesses are no longer hidden, they are laid bare, waiting to be shaped. The key to mastery here is detachment. Emotions are contagious, but the strategist is immune. While the world reacts with anxiety, rage, or longing, you remain a neutral axis. This neutrality does not imply indifference, it implies control. By maintaining emotional sovereignty, you force the minds around you into instability, where desire and fear can be directed, where miscalculations become inevitable. Manipulation is never overt. It is subtle, woven into absence and presence, into timing and restraint. The knave attempts to coerce, to demand, to push. The strategist instead engineers a psychological environment in which others act predictably, as if by their own volition. In doing so, the notion of luck dissolves. What once seemed random, the collapse of resistance, the convergence of opportunity, is now the direct result of calculated emotional leverage. At this stage, power resides in perception as much as in action. The world is not merely shaped by deeds, but by the unseen psychological architecture you construct. Every gesture, every withdrawal, every carefully timed appearance reinforces your authority, creating an ecosystem in which misfortune has no foothold. Luck is no longer an external force. It is a byproduct of mastery, a reflection of your dominance over the human mind and its vulnerabilities. Absence is not emptiness, it is an instrument of power. The mind hungers for what it cannot grasp. It fixates on what is withheld. In this stage, the strategist understands that presence alone is meaningless unless balanced by deliberate withdrawal. To be constantly visible is to become ordinary, predictable, and vulnerable. To vanish, to recede, is to create a vacuum that draws attention, desire, and even fear into the orbit of your influence. Observe how humans react to scarcity. Attention is amplified by absence, obsession triggered by restraint. When you remove yourself from expectation, when you withhold the immediate satisfaction of interaction, you force others to confront their own dependence on your presence. Their minds begin to orbit you without permission, crafting narratives, projecting intentions, anticipating your next move. What they perceive as luck, fortuitous encounters, timely opportunities, is often nothing more than their own compulsions, shaped by your calculated invisibility. This stage exploits the psychological imbalance of desire. Obsession is a reflection of weakness. It emerges in those who cannot tolerate unpredictability, who crave certainty, who are tethered to the attention of others for validation. By controlling when and how you appear, you orchestrate the rhythms of expectation. You become both the absence and the return, the shadow and the illumination, the unpredictable force around which all else rearranges. Absence also fractures ego. When others are denied the immediate satisfaction of your attention, their internal stability weakens. Pride, control, and self-assurance erode quietly, replaced by preoccupation and anxiety. The strategist watches this decay silently, noting which minds bend, which fracture, which can be guided, and which must be contained. Here, fortune is no longer a phenomenon to observe. It is a product of psychological manipulation. The world responds not to chance, but to the invisible architecture of influence you have constructed. Each withdrawal, each carefully timed disappearance, amplifies your value, aligns perception with your intent, and transforms the random currents of human behavior into predictable vectors of advantage. Absence is the crucible in which the illusion of luck is shattered. Those who master it no longer stumble, they command. Those who fail are consumed by the very unpredictability they once worshipped. The mind under pressure is a fragile instrument. In this stage, the strategist observes the internal fractures that emerge when expectation meets absence and unpredictability. Fear is the most efficient sculptor of behavior. It bends desire, distorts judgment, and exposes the hidden architecture of ego. Those who believe in luck are terrified of losing it. Those who depend on validation crumble when it is withheld. This is where power asserts itself most quietly, yet most ruthlessly. Internal recalibration begins with observation of reaction. Hesitation, overcompensation, panic, each is a signal, a blueprint of weakness. The strategist does not intervene directly. Intervention is premature. Instead, he allows the mind to confront its own instability, to reveal what is fractured, what is tethered, what cannot survive absence. Obsession grows, regret festers, and the self becomes malleable. What seems like chance, the sudden collapse of confidence, the unforeseen concession, the inexplicable surrender, is in truth the inevitable consequence of psychological architecture perfectly executed. Fear is amplified by silence. When the world is stripped of certainty, when expectation meets the void, the ego fractures. Control slips, obsession intensifies, and the mind becomes vulnerable to influence. This stage is not about inflicting harm, it is about observation, measurement, and the patient application of leverage. Each subtle emotional imbalance is noted, each impulse catalogued, each weakness mapped for strategic exploitation. The strategist recognizes that misfortune resides primarily within the individual. External events are neutral. They become dangerous only when the mind mismanages them. Those who panic, who overreact, who crave validation, interpret every deviation as calamity. In contrast, those who operate with internal sovereignty, detached, precise, aware, never stumble. Their world may shift, opportunities may vanish, yet the equilibrium of control remains unbroken. At this stage, the illusion of luck is finally dismantled. Human fragility, expectation, and fear converge into a predictable pattern. Fortune does not favor the timid or the reactive. It responds only to mastery, to those who can maintain calm within chaos, sovereignty within the collapse of others' certainty. The strategist understands this, and in that understanding, he becomes untouchable by the randomness the knave call luck. By this stage, the battlefield of perception has been mapped, weaknesses exposed, and obsession orchestrated. What remains is the consolidation of control, quiet, unyielding, absolute. Power is no longer tentative, it resides not in action alone, but in the architecture of influence you have meticulously constructed. Every mind, every desire, every hesitation around you has been catalogued and calibrated. You are no longer a participant in the chaos of chance, you are its architect. Dominance is achieved through the subtle manipulation of expectation. The world responds to those who are unshakable, whose absence is felt as gravely as their presence. The knave mistake visibility for influence, noise for authority. The strategist knows that true dominance is invisible until it strikes. It is not declared, it is perceived. Those who once governed their own actions begin to orbit your intent, unaware that the currents shaping their behavior are no longer theirs. Here, internal and external mastery converge. Absence has cultivated obsession. Observation has revealed weakness. Emotional calibration has induced desire, fear, and hesitation. Now, through measured intervention and strategic presence, you impose order. Decisions align not by coercion but by inevitability. What others perceive as fortune, as alignment, as luck, timely opportunities, allies behaving predictably, obstacles dissolving, is merely the reflection of your unshakable command over psychological reality. At this stage, the strategist remains detached. There is no indulgence in triumph, no celebration of advantage. Such emotion would be weakness. Instead, he maintains composure, monitors the subtle shifts in perception, and adjusts the architecture of influence with precision. Fortune bows not to the desperate or the reactive, but to the calm, the calculating, the sovereign mind. This consolidation is the final fortress before true mastery. The randomness of life no longer threatens, it is redirected. Chance is no longer a player, it is an echo of your design. Those who once wielded unpredictability as a weapon find themselves ensnared in a system they cannot comprehend, a system in which your presence and absence, your silence and action, your control over perception, dictate the rhythm of reality itself. Dominance at this stage is not raw or violent, it is absolute. It is psychological gravity. And it is immutable. At the culmination of this architecture, you confront a truth few dare to accept: luck does not exist. What others call chance, fortune, or fate is merely the reflection of their own weakness, their own mismanagement of perception and emotion. Those who stumble, who falter, who suffer setbacks, do so not because the world is cruel, but because their minds are fragile, tethered to validation, expectation, and reactive desire. The strategist, by contrast, moves through the same reality untouched, unseen by the randomness that ensnares the unprepared. The final stage is internal. It is a dominion over self, a quiet sovereignty that requires no audience. All external manipulations, all orchestrated absences, all calibrated interventions converge here: mastery of the mind itself. You no longer measure success or misfortune by external events. You measure it by the unshakable stability of your presence, the gravitational authority of your absence, the unerring control over perception and influence. In this state, the notion of bad luck becomes not irrelevant, but absurd. Human nature is predictable when observed with detachment. Desire, fear, obsession, pride, they can be quantified, leveraged, and redirected. The strategist's advantage is not brute strength, nor mere cunning. It is the ability to operate above the fluctuating tides of emotion, expectation, and circumstance. To never have bad luck is to occupy a space in which the world's chaos is a tool, not a threat, a medium for calculation, not a measure of vulnerability. In the end, the lesson is stark and uncomfortable: fortune is never owed. It is earned, not in action alone, but in absence, in observation, in the unflinching mastery of one's own mind. Those who seek luck remain at its mercy. Those who understand it, manipulate it, and ultimately transcend it, become untouchable. You are no longer a participant in randomness. You are the axis around which probability itself orbits. Luck is no longer a variable, it is a consequence of design, the silent echo of a mind sovereign over itself. To live in this state is not to defy reality, it is to bend it without resistance, to command existence itself with the calm certainty of one who knows. Chance has no dominion over a disciplined mind.